Everyone, literally everyone, is 3 life-changing events away from being homeless. Mine's exactly 3. I lost my partner, my job and my home all within the space of 2 months. I literally feel like they saved my life. I came to New Zealand in 2000, about a year after the death of my husband who'd had cancer. Came here, got a job, settled down, everything was going swimmingly. Met a man in my life, and that was really nice. And then we had only been together for 3 years when he was diagnosed with cancer and only lived for 5 weeks after the diagnosis. So I got very depressed. I just couldn't get to work, lost my job, and lost my home as well. I really, really was in a bad way. I'd been literally sleeping in parks for a couple of weeks. Eventually I was just sort of, oh, this is just crazy. I'm soaking wet, I can't sleep. I didn't know where to go in life. So eventually I made myself walk through the doors of the City Mission. And the City Mission referred me to emergency accommodation at the James Liston Hostel. This is where I was first able to get some emergency accommodation and actually literally get off the street. Lived here for about 8 to 10 weeks. Yeah, it's quite an emotional experience to look back on it, but as much as anything else, just to see where I've come from. And about the 3rd day that I was at James Liston Hostel, 3 people came down from Lifewise to do a morning tea for everyone. Said, look, if there's anyone here who needs any assistance with anything, come and see me afterwards. It's all private. And it was just such a, it was like a little tiny bit of light for me.
We shouldn't have homelessness in a country that's this rich. People who are homeless are like canaries down a mine. Canaries down a mine are the first sign that the mine isn't working. And people who sleep on our streets are like the first sign that our social safety systems are not working in our community. Lifewise is a social service and social development organisation based in Auckland. We work with everybody, whether they're young or whether they're old. So we provide foster care for very young children. We provide services for people who have disability, provide services to people who are homeless or in need of mental health or addictions treatment. The way we used to deal with homelessness in Auckland is through soup kitchens and night shelters. And all they do is just patch people up for more homelessness. So we fed people and we clothed people and so on. But then at the end of that day, we'd send them back out on the street for another night of homelessness. Now that can't happen, and it doesn't happen anymore in Auckland. Instead, we house people, we support people to remain housed, to connect in their community and to have a normal life. First of all, we close the soup kitchen and we set up a cafe that anyone can come and eat at.
We opened on the 22nd of November 2010 up on K Road. We wanted to provide, I guess, an alternative response to homelessness. It was about ensuring some dignity and some respect, and also changing the dynamic and the relationship between those that are homeless or experiencing homelessness and those that are working with the homeless. Anyone and everyone can come here, unlike the soup kitchen where only a certain type of people came in and used it.
It's broken down barriers for people realising that you're only one step away from somebody that's sitting beside you in less fortunate circumstances.
The Lifewise team took my situation and just supported me so much. I couldn't believe it. Like the very next day I went up to the Lifewise
cafe, and we worked through what the possibilities were, both short-term and long-term.
The majority of homelessness is invisible in New Zealand. So, if you look on the streets, you'll see people living on the streets. But there's the more invisible population of people living in overcrowded situations, people living in hostels and boarding houses, and people living in places like garages.
The Lifewise Big Sleep Out is basically bringing 60 or 70 business leaders of Auckland together for a night. Now, we're not pretending that we're homeless, but we're getting an experience of what it must be like to be homeless. And what's fabulous about the event is Lifewise don't just ask for money, they actually ask those business leaders to tap their networks. What I admire about Lifewise is they didn't have a solution when they first decided that they would run the Big Sleep Out. They have tapped into the minds of these leading business leaders that are prepared to give up a night, sleep on some hard concrete, generally under the rain, and they're applying new thinking to this issue of homelessness.
I've been doing the volunteer work at Lifewise for about 8 months, and gradually over the last few months I've sort of felt like I needed to make the next move. And the next move obviously was to actually apply for work. I've been working with someone at Lifewise who's helped me put together a CV. At the start of this week, I actually finally sent off my first 2 job applications. and I just, I won't necessarily get them, but for me, the huge achievement has been getting myself to the point of actually sending off those job applications.
What we saw on a regular basis at Lifewise was that a lot of our clients were going through the justice system and then eventually ending up in the prison system. So, the Court of New Beginnings is a court that addresses the underlying issues on why people offend. On the belief that if you address those underlying issues, you'll stop the offending, and you're giving people the opportunity to change. And I think, as a society, it's important that we give people the opportunity to change, and we give them the chance to be, the best that they can be.
In 2008, I became homeless as a result of sort of getting into trouble with the law, going downtown, fighting and drinking and smoking pot. It was part of our culture. It was part of this street culture that we had because we had nothing else. It can happen to anybody, and it can happen at any time. It's just a matter of being able to sort of cope with it, manage it, find ways of overcoming it, moving on, carrying on with your life, maybe getting a place to stay. And that's where Lifewise came in for me. They got me into a program where I could rehabilitate. 2009 basically was a time for me to sort of try and reconnect with some people. There was also things that I wanted to go back and finish. And one of the things that was unfinished to me was my studies that I was doing at the University of Auckland. And basically what happened was that if I could convince the university that I could come back and behave myself and finish my degree, then they would let me do it. So I returned to study in 2010, and it took me approximately 2.5 years to finish the study that I was doing at the time. And basically this is what it was all about, a Bachelor of Arts degree in Media Studies and Anthropology from the University of Auckland. For those people that want to change, they want to turn their life around, Lifewise is there to help them.
The ASB Community Trust has been invaluable to us. I think they provide more than just money. They provide support, they provide knowledge, they provide the ability for us to grow and to develop as an organisation. And they've helped us to achieve a huge amount in the community.
For me, I guess that desire to be back in a situation of having a place of my own was a really, really big deal. So getting offered this Housing New Zealand place was just sort of like a bit of magic for me, really. It was wonderful. It's just amazing, so amazing to have a home, to be applying for jobs, to be in a situation where I can really, really see my life getting back on track. That's just the best feeling in the world.
And, I think the reality is homelessness is a solvable issue, and Lifewise will be one of the leading organisations or agencies that helps end homelessness in this country.
We're about ending social issues and supporting people to find their own solutions so these problems will end and we won't need to exist.
The thing about the Lifewise team, I guess the only way I can describe it looking back on it is give you back a bit of your dignity, which you lose when you're in that, sorry, you lose that entirely when you're in that kind of situation. It's so hard to hold your head up and sort of actually try to do something to change it for yourself. But certainly what Lifewise did for me was sort of, I guess, that walking beside you a bit rather than doing it all for you. It was just giving you someone to support you through it.